Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me here today to celebrate 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. If you just happen to stumble on this video and you don't know who I am Peter Barber, professional singer and music producer. And today's a celebration day, so I'm gonna hopefully do these every 50,000 subscribers. Traditionally I've done live streams, but I wanted to try out this new format where I ask questions, or I ask you guys to submit questions and or comments on Patreon, YouTube, and Instagram, and then I'm going to go through as many of those as I can in the next hour. There were almost 200 questions and comments submitted, so I obviously can't get through all of those, but I will do my best. Of course, I'm going to start with Patreon, my Patreon community, and once I get through those, I will try to split the time between YouTube and Instagram. So thank you all for submitting questions. This is very exciting. Another 50,000 subscriber benchmark. Also, I do live streams every 10,000 for Patreon. So if you want to do this kind of thing more often, ask me questions, get one-on-one interaction, essentially, join the Patreon community there. But let's do it, guys. I'm going to literally set a timer for an hour and see how much we can get through. Okay, here we go. First question from Roy J. Matisse. Other than Don Giovanni, what is your favorite opera role you have played/sung? Great question, Roy. Shout out to Roy. Yeah, Don Giovanni in Mozart's Don Giovanni is my favorite role ever, and I would say my second favorite role I've ever performed is probably Nick Bottom in Midsummer Night's Dream. Of course, the play is originally by Shakespeare, but there is an operatic version of Midsummer Night's Dream by Benjamin Britten. And Bottom is a really fun character to play. He gets turned into a donkey. You get to make donkey noises. The music, the language is Old English, which is really fun and hard to kind of get both your mouth and brain around. So I really enjoyed playing Bottom, and I did that at the University of Southern California. That was kind of just before I started singing professionally. That was back in 2019. Next question. Mindy Weiss. Mindy, Mindy, I've never asked you how to pronounce your last name, so leave a comment. Are you ever going to be coming to Washington? I can take you to Mount Rainier. We can explore Seattle. Seattle has a really great opera company. I don't think it's an A-house like Los Angeles or Chicago, but it's a very good, very large regional opera company. So I hope to sing for Opera Seattle someday. So yeah, if I'm ever up there, I'll hit you up and we'll go exploring. Next question is from Dorima. How do you decide which songs to analyze? This has gone through an evolution. I mean, originally I started just doing a cappella, just bass stuff as a bass singer. That was something I could tap into that no one else really could in the reaction and analysis sphere. I really try to do a balance of what I'm interested in, what you guys have suggested, and what's going to be successful for the channel. Because at the end of the day, the YouTube has really become basically my primary form of income between YouTube and Patreon. So part of that has to be doing what's going to perform best, what's going to bring people to the Patreon. But also, I'm not going to make videos for music I have absolutely no interest in. And I'm probably not going to make music for stuff you guys have absolutely no interest in either. So it is kind of this weird balance of that. Now, I don't go in and make huge charts, and I don't have a team, picking what I do. Like Elizabeth on The Charismatic Voice, for example, has a team that decides what videos she's going to do based on metrics and interest and, all those sorts of things. I don't have that, so a lot of it for me is more of a gut feeling and, kind of briefly looking over the stats of what's performed well, especially in the last 6 months or so on the channel, and going from there. But at the end of the day, everything I'm reacting to is stuff I'm interested in. It's likely you guys are interested in. It's likely going to perform well on the channel. Fiona Jane Brown, one of the OG Patreon supporters. What is your favorite Bass Gang arrangement? That is a fantastic question. There is an arrangement actually coming out on Volume 4 by Marwan, and he has really slaved over this arrangement and apparently didn't enjoy it very much, but it's definitely one of my favorites we've ever done for sure. I also love Bobby's arrangement for Friend Like Me. I don't know how he arranged that. It is incredibly complicated. It has like every chord in existence in one song. Let's see, going back even further. Centuries, Marwan's arrangement of Centuries I really, really like. Gosh, everyone has made an incredible arrangement. Tommy's arrangement on the new EP is going to be insane. My arrangement on the new EP is going to be insane. Bobby's arrangement. Get ready for Volume 4 is what I'm saying. It's really hard to pick a favorite. I feel like they are my children. Wendy Hill Smith, who is someone you'd love to sing with in a duet? Like realistically sing with, or just someone I'd like to sing with? Because I would absolutely kill to do a song with Billie Eilish or Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons. That would be pretty amazing. I would love to do a song with Brev, like just the two of us at some point, just because we have very similar skill sets in singing. I think that'd be really cool. I'd love to do a duet with Colm McGinnis at some point. We're trying to figure out maybe something we can do together. I would love to do a song with Melinda someday. That'd be really cool. Serena Bell. All of which are possible. I've already done a number of songs with Lauren Paley, which has been amazing, and Melinda was on the Bass Gang song. But all the big musical creators, and a lot of them there's already plans to. Jeff Castellucci, Avi Kaplan, of course. How could I forget those two? Any big bass singer, any big musical creator, that I'm kind of in the sphere of right now, I hope to do something with someday. Michelle McDermott, when did you decide to become an opera singer, and what has been your favorite role to date? I would say I decided my last year of undergrad. I did a role called Don Alfonso in Così fan tutte, and that kind of turned me back from the composition / music production route, of which I'm kind of back on now, but that turned me away from that towards wanting to pursue opera professionally. So I was 23 at the time, I guess, when I made that decision. And my favorite role is Don Giovanni in Mozart's Don Giovanni. Amanda Knott, what types of music or artists do you have on your playlist for when you're just hanging out at home or exercising or in the car? Do you have your own or TBG's music on that playlist? I don't have my music or the Bass Gang on any playlists that I've curated on Spotify. I do listen occasionally to our music, not very often. Some groups I've really been listening to a lot lately. The Black Keys. I've been listening to Imagine Dragons' new album, Loom. I'm also going to see them in Los Angeles on the October 22nd with Bobby, which is going to be really fun. I listen to a lot of the music that comes out of the League of Legends universe. I've been listening to Aerosmith a lot. I also love listening to Luke Combs, who's a country music singer. Dierks Bentley, another country artist. Those are some artists that I've been listening to a lot lately. And that's what I'll usually do. I'll usually listen to a set of artists a ton, and then I'll put it away for a while and go binge other artists and then come back to it. Been listening to a lot of those guys lately. Diane Antos, what do you enjoy doing that doesn't include music of any kind? I love reading before bed. I pretty much always read something fantasy related before bed for like a half hour to an hour. Helps me unwind and kind of take my mind off what's been up during the day. Takes my mind out of logic mode, which is really, really nice. So reading for sure. I would say exercising, because I do listen to music when I exercise, but one doesn't have to. I could certainly exercise without it. Fitness is a big part of my life. So fitness, reading, TV shows and movies. I love taking a couple hours at the end of the night once I've gotten everything I want to accomplish for the day done and just watching shows. I love tons of different kinds of shows and movies, for sure. Also, just hanging out with friends is one of my greatest joys. Just spending time joking, doing accents, hanging out with friends, which can or cannot include music. Okay, Eileen Wood, truly one of my biggest and most loyal supporters. Shout out to Eileen, who's in Vegas. I'm doing a world premiere opera in Vegas in about a month. I'm pretty sure Eileen and I will finally get to meet in person at that point. Some opera questions. Why did you choose opera? In high school, it was jazz, rap, and country. College was a cappella and choral. What made you wake up one morning and say, nope, gonna be an opera singer instead? And how did your family react when you told them? You seem to have an amazing family and very supportive of whatever you do, which is awesome. It really was doing that role my last year of undergrad. Don Alfonso and Mozart's Così fan tutte. It was just really fun. I just really enjoyed the process. Even learning it in the rehearsals, I remember finding fun. I think it was just such a fun role. And then, of course, performing. That's what it's all about. It wasn't really a moment. It wasn't one morning and said, hey, this is the one I'm going to do. But just over the course of that semester, I felt myself, being pulled more and more in that direction. Family's always been supportive of everything. I think, in my experience, as long as I'm working hard and I'm putting in effort and I'm being a good person, my family's always been extremely supportive. The success that I'm finding and the success and all the goals I hope to accomplish in the future are cherries on top for them, but they're extremely supportive. They would love me no matter what. Second question from Eileen. With all the ongoing training to be an opera singer, is it difficult to switch genres, to go from singing operatic style on a daily basis to singing Sharks or Eyes Closed, which are two covers I put out recently, both by Imagine Dragons. For context. It has been a long journey figuring out how to sing in multiple styles. There are certainly principles and tenets you can bring to each one. Absolutely. You can take one and put it into the other. I would say my high notes in opera, my access to the really upper part of my bass range has increased a lot from just trying to belt crazy stuff with the bass gang. I can definitely sing higher, like I can stretch my voice higher than pretty much any other bass opera singer I know. At least that's my age. Sometimes more mature ones have really learned how to expand their range. But it is difficult, and there are definitely days when I just can't really sing the pop stuff. Like, my voice just doesn't really function that way, and there are certainly times when I've been recording an entire EP for the bass gang when my voice struggles a little bit to get back to I can sing both fine all the time, but like to really be singing them at a really high professional level, world-class level, that takes a lot of dialing in. So if you're trying to do too much of both, it is actually difficult to switch between them. And last question, how long does it take to prepare for an opera role, both on your own and in rehearsals with the cast? How far ahead of the first rehearsal do you get the script? I don't think you call it a script, though. The big book with the music, the score, the character breakdowns, etc. That is called a score. Yeah, an opera score. Usually a piano vocal score. So the orchestra has been reduced into just piano, so it's, this big and this big instead of this big and this big with all the opera parts. It depends on the role. Totally depends on the role. I mean, Giovanni, I started preparing when I got to AVA in the fall of 2020, and I didn't perform it till spring of 2023. Of course, I wasn't working on it that whole time, and I really dialed it in, the probably 3 to 4 months before performing. But for a really big role like that, you definitely want months of studying every day, and not just learning it and learning the language and learning the translations, but practicing it diligently, vocally, getting it in your voice so you can sing every note as good as possible for that 2.5, 3 hour performance. Usually rehearsals in a professional company are about 3 weeks. Usually 2 weeks in one rehearsal space, and then you move into the theater for another week or week and a half, and then you're opening the show. In school settings, it's much longer. You would prep for most of the semester before putting on a show, 2 months, 2.5 months. But I'm doing a Barber of Seville next May 2025, with a company called Druid City Opera, and it's 1 week. So we fly in, we have 1 week of rehearsals and prep, and then the show opens, which is like a shotgun style. So usually about a month in professional setting. For for the whole cast to actually put on the whole show. And that's with orchestra, that's with conductor, director, costume, makeup, stagehands, lighting, cues, blah, 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 blah. That's everything. So you got to show up to that first rehearsal prepared. So a few months on your own, and then a month with the company, or so. Okay, Nora, another wonderful supporter who's been with me since the beginning. Other than crepes, there might be a typo. Other than crepes, what that one nice meal you said you can cook? May as well change the questions a little bit. What are you interested in learning how to cook that you've never tried? That is a good question. Yeah, I do cook a lot of the same boring things. And Nora's referencing my time as a crepe chef in Nashville. I lived in Nashville with George Washburn, great guitar player, in 2015. And we both worked at a coffee and crepe shop. And we both worked our way up to crepe chef by the end of the summer. So that's kind of a special thing I learned how to cook that I probably still could if I had a crepe stove, which I've considered getting, actually. Because they really are wonderful. You can make crepes for breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, all kinds of stuff. I don't really think about learning new things to cook. I have like my set meals that I stick to and that fit my diet, whether I'm cutting or bulking. So I really haven't thought about learning how to make a new thing. Truly, it's a really boring answer, but I really haven't thought about it. Okay. Amy, you also have to tell me how to pronounce your last name. Shoot me a message. Congratulations on 200K. Thank you. What is something you wish everyone knew about opera? Also, can we send you presents? Yes, you may send me presents. I have a wish list on Amazon that I just released to my Patreon community, and I think you can send other things not on the list by using that list. So if you want to send me something, by all means, check that out. I'll leave a link below. Something everyone, my pitch for opera, like when people are asking me about it, the thing I usually start with is we sing with full orchestra, right? Full orchestra in a big space, usually fit for 1,000 to 3,000 people. And we do not use microphones, which is unlike any other discipline singing in any kind of space even close to that big. It's always going to be musical theaters, amplified heavily, any pop concert, rock concert, you name the concert. Even in small venues, most those genres are pretty much always microphoned, amplified. We do not use microphones, so we have to be loud enough to sing, to fill this whole space with just our voice, when it's just one voice and an orchestra playing. We have to be loud enough so that our voice, essentially what we call, cuts through the orchestra and gets out to the entire audience. It is like Olympic level singing. It's full bodied, it's loud, it feels like healthy yelling. It's healthy yelling from a very trained voice. You know what I mean? So it's much louder than a regular person yelling. It's also controlled and with the vibrato and the perfect pitch and the language and all these things. But that is my one fun fact everyone should know, is that we sing against entire orchestras without microphones. Okay, let's move on to YouTube, and we're coming up on 20 minutes in. So a lot of the comments on YouTube were mostly congratulations. So I'm going to scan through and find the actual questions that came in. But a major thank you to everyone who left a comment. I read every single one of them already, and I'm extremely appreciative. Here we go. Okay, this is from Sheridamos9755. Congratulations on a well-deserved milestone. Thank you. My questions for you would be, who are your favorite... Okay, these are a lot of questions. I will do two from this person, and then I'll move on, because there are a lot. But these are some great questions. Who are your favorite musical influences? Right now, for my solo music, everything coming out of League of Legends. So my buddy Mako, who I've done a full interview with, I'll leave a link to that here or here. He writes a lot of the music for League of Legends, and Arcane, phenomenal, just incredible show with the greatest music I've ever heard. It's this amazing blend of electronics and orchestra and like big power vocals. So I'm going to say that for right now. That's my favorite musical influence in the non-classical world. Classical world, probably, my favorite singer ever in opera is Cesare Siepi. He's, I think, the greatest operatic bass of all time. Probably my biggest influence there. Also, I've been listening to a lot of Greer Grimsley lately, who I just met. He's like the leading like Wagnerian bass baritone in the world. I just heard him perform last weekend, and it completely blew my mind. And I performed a little bit of Wagner in this festival, the Aspen Music Festival, and a lot of people are saying like, didn't expect this, but like maybe your voice is actually headed in this direction for like the big dramatic repertoire, which I never thought I would hear. But I've been making some tweaks to my singing lately, which is resulting in some big changes, which is very exciting. Okay. I'm going to skip through to this last question, which I think is extremely interesting. How do you think that AI will affect the music industry? That is such a big question, and we're all scared. All of us artists are scared because we see what AI is doing and what it's becoming capable of. I mean, it can write songs now. It can replicate the human voice very, very well now. So you can, I mean, there are like TikTok accounts where it just writes, country songs. And it's not quite to the point yet where you can't tell. You can pretty much tell. You can still tell pretty easily when it's AI generated, but we are like one machine generation away from that no longer being the case, and AI being able to write songs just as good and just as emotionally powerful, and apparently even the voices as well. So what I hope with all artistry is, I think it has become this way for graphic design, is that there will be a premium on human-made product and an appreciation for it, right? If you see something, I mean, I've used AI for some cover art in the past, because when you just want to put music out and you need cover art and you don't have the budget at the time, you use AI. Otherwise, I always try to pay artists when I can. Bass Gang always, pretty much all. We've also been typed before and used AI, but 90% of the time we're using artists. We're paying artists what they deserve. No one cares about the AI art. Even if it looks really cool, because it's AI, there's inherently like, well, we don't really care because a person didn't do it, right? And so we're already feeling that. So I'm nervous. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I do think there will be a premium on human-made art, whether it's music or graphic design or whatever. And also apps like Instagram and YouTube they now have a little box that you check or don't check when you upload, saying if there's AI involvement in your post, which I think is really wonderful, and I hope they're strict about that, and I hope they crack down on people who lie and abuse that, because I think YouTube and Instagram should continue to push content that is human made, right? Because if we start pushing AI content and everyone's feeds are just AI, and there's no way to kind of stratify what's going on, that could be real trouble, because then you get into not knowing what's almost like what's real or not, right? Which is a whole deeper discussion. So I'm nervous, but I have hopes. I am nervous but optimistic, if that's a thing. Okay, this is from Scrooge GD. Q&A. What got you into bass singing, opera sing, and what are your plans for the future of this channel? Ooh. Great question, Scrooge GD. What got me into bass singing? I have always, since I was a tiny kid, far before puberty, loved low voices, loved listening to low voices, and loved seeing big muscles. This is why Gaston was my favorite character when I was a kid, even though he is an arsehole and a complete narcissist. He had a low baritone operatic voice and the biggest muscles. So I've always loved it. What actually got me into bass singing is that when my voice actually started dropping into the bass register, I think 7th grade was when my voice did its first kind of major drop. I was like 13 years old, start of puberty. And I remember being able to sing just like a G2. Like, there was this song we were doing in band. I was in band in middle school that went like G3, D3, G2, back and forth. I played trombone, which is a similar range, as my voice. And I remember being able to sing the G2, and I remember that felt really cool. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of becoming a bass. Like, my voice is getting lower. I did have a friend named Bowie Fox, who was like a straight up profundo, even at that age. I remember he could comfortably sing low C's as like a 13-year-old. It was absolutely insane. Bowie, if you're out there, I wonder how low your voice is now. But that's kind of when I got into bass singing, and I started listening to Chanticleer, Eric Alatorre and Chanticleer. I loved listening to him, still do. I started looking up all the Russian basso profundos online and early YouTube and listening just on repeat, and I would listen to all the gospel singers. So pretty much really getting into bass singing coincided when my voice started dropping. Of course, it took me many, many years until I really could consider myself a bass. I mean, I still think that's like late 20s I would have started considering myself a real bass. I mean, even all the way through high school, I really would consider myself a baritone. Got me into opera singing is just I kind of fell into it because my mom, my senior year of high school, thought I had a lower, more resonant voice than most people, at least most guys my age, and so she encouraged me to get some classical voice lessons. And that teacher pushed me to audition for undergrad for classical voice. So that's how I initially got started in opera. Basically took a number of years away from it, or at least away from caring about it, till I came back, and then I went to my master's for opera. But there was a big period in there where I was doing music production and composition and all kinds of stuff. But initially, opera kind of started my senior year of high school. And what are my plans for the future of this channel? I would like to be, and for the podcast as well, I would like to be a leading podcast for singers, to where people go to listen to singers and conversations with singers or voice actors. 3 to 5 years, I would love to be able to have conversations with some of the biggest artists in the world. I would love to be able to talk with the Billie Eilishes of the world, with the John Legends of the world, with the Hans Zimmers of the world, and then also the equaling level voice actors and voice actresses who are doing all the really big stuff. So that is a big dream. I think I have a knack for interviewing and talking to people and having an organic conversation, and I feel like I become friends with all my guests after talking to them with an hour. We become very comfortable and often collaborate after that. So I think there's a lot of potential for the podcast. As far as analysis stuff, I mean, I would love also in the next 3 to 5 years to grow my level to the size, Elizabeth's is in the charismatic voice, and by then she'll be another level up. But I would love to hit that, above 1 million subscriber count and have people that, come to the channel to learn more about just like people are now at 200,000, but just, 10x that in the next 3 to 5 years. That'd be really cool. So millions for the reaction analysis videos, talking to some of the biggest names in music. I don't really have goals for my solo music. It's really out of passion, like my album Metamorphosis. I have more songs coming out soon. That's really passion, but I do hope the Bass Gang gets really big. I would also love to see the Bass Gang get up to that 1 million subscriber count, 1 million monthly listeners on Spotify, which I totally think is possible if we just keep putting out stuff. The people that find us love us, and more finding us all the time. So big goals for the Bass Gang, big goals for the podcast, big goals for the analysis stuff. And my solo music, I hope it keeps growing. I hope more and more people love it because I think it's really cool. But I don't really have anything specific for that. Okay, moving on. Lots of congrats. Okay, next question. Firewheels90. If you could play any role, opera or theater or movie, your choice, what would it be and why? Well, I guess the interesting thing I would love to get into film. Love. I would love to get into voice acting for animated stuff. I'm going to try throwing my hat in the ring in the next couple years. And I would love to get into film. I would love to do movies and shows someday. Straight theater, I don't really have an interest in. Musical theater, I also don't really have an interest performing in, although I think it's an amazing art form. For opera, certainly some roles. Mephistopheles and Faust, I would love to perform. I would love to sing Don Giovanni all over the world. I would love to sing Boito's Mephistopheles, which is a different take on the same character as Mephistopheles. That one's in Italian. The fast one is French. I would love to play King Philip in Don Carlo. I would love to maybe sing Wotan in a Rheingold. I don't know if I'll ever have the voice to sing like the whole ring cycle as Wotan, having heard Greer Grimsley do it a few days ago. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but Wotan and Rheingold's a little more manageable. Those are some roles. Commendatore and Giovanni, Leporello and Giovanni. I know all these roles. I would like to sing them someday, for sure. What else? Attila, Verdi. That'd be amazing role to take on. Pretty much any like badass warrior or like devil character, I would love to play in opera. Okay, next question. Anna Cheney. Congratulations, I'm so happy for you. Heart. Thank you, Anna. What would you say your biggest accomplishment in your career is right now? Biggest accomplishment. I mean, not at all based on the like material success of the project, but putting out my last album, Metamorphosis, was an absolutely gargantuan undertaking that I'm extremely proud of. It's a 12-song album. If you guys haven't heard it, it's all covers of songs, but they're done and like with heavy electronics and heavy orchestration and bass vocals and vocal layering like the Bass Gang. Huge projects, 12 enormous projects, and I completed that album all while being a full-time opera singer at Arizona Opera, doing roles back to back to back. So I mean that is really huge, and I look back on that time period, which was basically the start of 2024, to when it was. I mean, almost every waking moment I wasn't in rehearsal or preparing for opera, I was working on this album. I'm sure I put hundreds upon hundreds of hours into it. So I'm very proud of it. And listening back to it, when I listen back to it, I think, yeah, it's really cool. It's a really cool genre. I'm very, very proud of it. So that's not materially my biggest accomplishment. I mean, the combination of everything I'm doing right now, the plates I'm spinning, always, when I take the time to think about it, is an accomplishment. The fact that I am a full-time professional opera singer, and I have a YouTube channel with 200,000 subscribers, and I have a podcast where I've talked to some of the most amazing musicians around, and I'm in the Bass Gang and like constantly making projects and recording and editing for that. I mean, literally recording. I built a little studio this summer in Aspen at the Aspen Music Festival while performing, so that in between rehearsals I could be recording for the Bass Gang's next volume. It's crazy. It's a lot all the time. And it's a major accomplishment that everything has built up to the point where it's worthwhile to keep going, right? Like if some of these things weren't making any money, I wouldn't be able to keep it up in all likelihood. Great question. Okay. Emma Dillard, 4360. What's your favorite song that you've done in your album Metamorphosis? Okay, that's funny. Nice little segue there. It's such a tough call. I really am so proud of so many songs on that album. Playground with Marwan is certainly a big favorite of mine. I had the whole solo version completed, or almost completed, and I remember my brother Walt listened to it and was like, "It'd be really cool if you added like Marwan doing some Egyptian riffs and stuff like that." I was like, that's an interesting idea. And the rest is history. It turned out to be the first. I was like, this is going to be the first song on the album. It's so cool. It's such a cool soundscape. Marwan adds so much to it. Incredibly proud of that one. Lazarus. The David Bowie cover is probably my favorite song on the album, and it starts off slow, and I don't think that many people know the original, so it hasn't gotten the streams that some of the other ones have gotten. That is such a cool song, and I am incredibly proud of the cover, and it works perfect for bass voice, and all the dark electronics are perfect, and the heavy drum sampling is perfect, and George playing guitar is perfect, and this guy Andy playing layered drums beneath the heavy samples is perfect. And I listen back and I'm just like, this is like maybe the coolest cover I've ever created. So I would say Lazarus is probably my favorite, along with Playground with Marwan and No Time to Die with Mia Asano. those are my top three. That's as good as I can do. I'm gonna just read this comment. Kano4282 says, "Well, that escalated quickly." Yeah, it's growing, man. YouTube's growing. Okay, moving on. Let's see. I'm gonna read my mom's comment. Virginia Barber -NV9HJ. Mom, we gotta get you a cooler username. without all those letters in the end. As Peter's proud mom, I just want to thank all of you wonderful people who have been so supportive of his musical endeavors. I am biased, no doubt, but he really is an amazing person. Your support means the world to him. Hearts. Thank you, Mom. Yeah. I told you earlier, someone else asked a question about my family. Incredibly supportive. My mom literally watches like all my premieres, all my videos, all my analysis. I'm like, Mom, you don't have to do that. I know you love and support me. You really don't have to watch everything. But she does, and she says it makes her feel like she gets to hang out with me a couple times a week, which is very sweet. This is from Zakhulena8350. Congratulations, Peter. Thank you, Zach. Been watching for a few years now, and it's been a privilege to watch you and the gang grow. Have you considered doing a reaction to Stray Kids? One of their members, Felix, has a low bass voice, which you may find intriguing. I have heard people recommend Stray Kids, but I have not listened to them, and I don't have any solidified plans to check them out, but I will look into it and think about the factors I talked at the start of this video. Okay, here's another question. This is from kid_bass. How long did it take you to master Oh, wow. How long did it take you to master subharmonics once you found out about them? And who from the bass gang was first and last to learn them? Also, huge congrats on 200K. Thank you, Kid Bass. I am definitely not a master of subharmonics, but I can do them pretty reliably now and pretty consistently, depending on the range of them. There's like a gap in there where I have to like switch how I do it, where I haven't quite figured out how to navigate, but higher subs and then really low subs I've got a pretty good handle on now. But I'm not a master. Not a master at all. I actually found out about them way back in undergrad in like 2015. My voice teacher, David Newman, shout out to David at JMU, James Madison University, figured out how to do them before anyone else was doing them. And then shortly after that, a guy named David Larson comes along, who's kind of like the father of modern day subharmonics. A lot of people have learned from him. I certainly learned by watching his tutorials. That was also 2015, 2016-ish. But I never practiced them, so I never, if I'd been practicing every day since then, I'd be insane. But I just do them usually for fun or when I have to record, and over time they've gotten slowly better. Who from the bass gang was first and last to learn them? I was probably last to get good at them from the bass gang. I don't know who was last. I mean, Marwan's probably the last to learn about them because he's so much younger than the rest of us. But I was probably the last to get good at them. So I will edit your question slightly to be that. And the first to learn them was also weirdly probably me. Because again, I'm 5 years older than the rest of the guys. So unless Bobby and Tommy were doing them at age 16 or 17, I was probably the first to learn them and the last to get good at them. So great for me. This is from Commando10664. What has been your favorite bass gang song that you've done and why? Let's see, what have I done for the bass gang? Therefore I Am, Yellow Flicker Beat, Bones, Gaston, If I Had a Heart, and What's Coming on Volume 4. That's really probably Yellow Flicker Beat. That's I think my Yellow Flicker Beat is probably my favorite arrangement I've done, and it was really cool having Colin McGuinness take a lead and sing some bass on that song as well. Also, If I Had a Heart, I'm very proud of that one. Also Bones, just because it has the cool blend of electronics in there. But gun to my head, my favorite song that I've done is probably Yellow Flicker Beat. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you, everybody. Richard Chavez 6168. Q&A, Peter, any tips on vibrato for higher notes? And who would you spend a day with, Jeff, Tim, or Avi? Personally, I chose Avi. And one more thing, how deep is your speaking voice? It reminds me of Barry White's voice. Search him up. His voice is an A1. His voice is definitely lower than mine. Maybe by the time I'm 50, I'll be speaking at an A1, but certainly not that low right now. Vibrato on higher notes, yeah, this is tough. I mean, this is a really tough thing to do, at least high notes in your chest range. When you're both stretching the vocal folds way out, but you have to stay relaxed enough so that everything keeps vibrating, it's really tough, and it really all comes down to breath support and subglottic pressure at the level of your vocal folds, and not compressing and not tightening. So you have to train your voice to where you can get really good vocal fold closure to the point where you can keep stretching those notes all the way up into your high chest range, but not so much subglottic pressure and constriction here that it can't vibrate. Because a voice, when it's totally natural and free, is vibrating perfectly. So that's why vibrato is the most healthy, sustainable state for your voice. It's not appropriate for all genres. It is for opera, because if you tried to straight tone your way through a big operatic role, you would absolutely destroy your voice. You can't sing loudly. You can't yell for 3 hours on straight tone. You will absolutely destroy your voice. So the vibrato is actually a healthy thing. It's a healthy form of singing. But yeah, I mean, you gotta slowly work your way up, right? You don't want to go from only being able to vibrate on your low notes to trying to, vibrate on a belt or vibrate on a huge operatic high note, right? You've got to slowly stretch up and learn how to get as much air as you need, not getting too much air, while this stays relaxed, while the vocal folds have enough vocal fold closure to stay together and create a pure tone. It's a lot. It's actually really difficult. Singing a big high note and chest voice with consistent vibrato is a lot of what separates an advanced classical singer from not. For real. Like, you just don't hear that many people who can do like a big vibrato belt outside of the opera world or the musical theater world. Okay, we are running out of time, so I'm going to stop there for YouTube, and I'm going to pop over to Instagram. Okay, here we go. First question. This is from JFA Groupie. Is there going to be any covers with your guitar in the future? Yes, I was teasing guitar covers from me a while back when I first started playing. And as much as I love guitar, and I still play on occasion for fun, I really don't play or practice enough for my skills to get good enough for a cover, at least not yet. Especially when I have George, who's like one of the best guitarists in Nashville, and I can just be like, hey George, can you play some guitar parts for me? And in like 2 days, he's played like 40 guitar parts for a song. I don't feel much need. So there are currently no plans for an official acoustic cover, but thank you for asking. Manav, shout out to Manav. Also, me and some of the boys have a song with Manav coming out very soon. It's among the most fun I've had recording audio and recording video. I shot 2.5 hours of video for it last night. You guys are going to absolutely love it. What's the biggest challenge when switching between opera and pop? Great question. You have to remember that while some tenets from opera, for example, can stay the same, like you always want to be using breath support no matter what you're singing. The laryngeal position is different. The vocal fold closure is often different, because often for pop, if you're singing in your low and middle voice, you don't want tons of resonance and vocal fold closure. Maybe when you're doing a big belt. Also, you have to intentionally remove the vibrato by adding a little bit of tension and compression, because like I said earlier, a vibrato is very free. To introduce straight tone, you have to have a little bit of extra tension in there. So doing that. And overall stylistically, how you deal with language, how you deal with text, how you deal with phrasing is different, because in opera you do all those things while knowing you have to carry to the back of a big opera house without a microphone. In pop music, in studio music, you can do anything and it'll be heard. Do the quietest thing in the world, can be heard clearly above the biggest orchestra in the world if it's done in a studio recording, because you just boost up the vocal. You know, you turn down the orchestra and you boost up the vocal. So how you approach all those things is different. So really a lot of things are different. Pretty much everything except breath support. Ikapur08 asks 3 things. What's the science behind subharmonics? Subharmonics tips and tutorial. And how can I sing lower? Science behind subs. So for a while, well, there's a lot of different kinds of subharmonics. The one you're thinking of is probably this one, right? Because that's the one we use in bass singing all the time, right? See, getting better at it. That subharmonic is all done with the true folds. I used to think, and a lot of people used to think it was the false folds, but to get the false folds involved is a whole different thing. This one is actually, I was talking with Tu Yang. If you guys know Bass Tu Yang, also learned subs from him. He's got a great YouTube channel. It's actually the vocal folds creating a different pattern of phonation to create the undertone. Instead of your true folds vibrating and your false folds vibrating exactly half the speed, which is what I thought it was and what a lot of people thought it was for a while, it's actually your true folds through the introduction of sort of a vocal fry like singing that you add into your pure chest voice. It creates a new tone from a new pattern of singing, which is really interesting. So going off that, subharmonic tips and tutorial. I think the easiest way to do it is what I was just talking about, is trying to introduce a little bit of vocal fry into your chest voice. So if you want to find a note that's comfortable in your chest range, like speaking voice, maybe even a little higher than speaking voice, and you want to slowly introduce a vocal fry into it. So if I sing that note, and then I vocal fry it, or I vocal fry an octave down, it was like a chest fry. You want to almost try to combine those and try to introduce one into the other. So if you go, so subs are not very clean right now, but that's kind of the idea. So, and then you can kind of dial it in by just connecting and disconnecting from the sub. And just kind of go back and forth like that. But the sensation feels like you are introducing vocal fry into your chest, your pure chest pitch, and that then creates that new pattern. And that's as simple as I can put it. And aside from those little tips and what's actually happening, you just noodle around until you get comfortable using that musculature. You just noodle around, and at some point you start getting reliable with it. Bass singer in training asks, how can I get into opera? Oh boy. I mean, to get into it's not too hard, actually. You definitely want to find a teacher that knows what they're doing. So many teachers don't. Find a teacher that has either had a career as a professional opera singer, not worked at a few local companies, not did their undergrad in opera, not classically trained for a few years, a professional, someone who has sung on big stages successfully. Either that. Now, not all those singers know how to teach. It's true, but at least they've done the thing. There are so many singers that they go to their undergrad, they get a music ed degree, and that somehow qualifies them to teach the most difficult, advanced singing technique in the world, which is opera. No technique takes more training. I will die on that hill. I kind of used to think like, oh, opera singing's like better than everything else. I definitely no longer believe that. I am blown away by rock singers and metal singers more often than I'm blown away by opera singers nowadays, truly. But opera does take the most training, period. It takes the most diligent training to dial in your classical technique to be able to sing with a full orchestra in a big house without a microphone. But just to get into it, find a teacher who has either taught successful opera singers, not successful singers, successful opera singers, or someone who has done it themselves. Start there. that it's a long road. Oh my God. But you want to start just taking voice lessons. Like, figure out if you've got the kind of setup to sing opera, to have a chance at singing opera, or if you just want to do it for fun. Take some voice lessons. Once you've taken some voice lessons and you get some skill behind you, audition for a program. If you can get into a good undergrad or a good master's program for opera, that's great. Beyond that, you've got to be doing your acting training. You've got to be doing a ton of language training. You don't have to be fluent in these languages, but you have to sound fluent. You have to be able to sound truly fluent in English, German, French, Italian, Russian, Czech, at least, to have a real shot. But obviously you don't start with all 6 of those. But you got to be working on your diction. You got to work on your language. You got to be working on your technique. You got to be working on your acting. And the other most important thing, which is really tough to get while you're young, is performance experience. So whether that's recitals or scenes programs or small roles in opera once your voice kind of starts to develop, and then bigger roles, and then leading roles, and then more dramatic repertoire. If you're a low-voiced male in an undergrad, you will get cast because there is a major shortage of us around in undergrad programs. Less so in masters, and then once you get beyond masters, even for low voices, everything gets quite competitive, all the way up, of course, through being a full-on professional. But at the starting stages, you will be sought out by directors of undergrad programs and master's programs because people need basses, and people need guys in general. Programs need guys in general. But that's where you start. Start with some voice lessons, find a good teacher, and then you start building up all those other skills. Okay, next question. Jackson.Kramer06. What is one major highlight or a few for the past few years in your career? Let's go through it because there's a few different things I've been doing. Highlights for opera have certainly been performing Don Giovanni at the Academy of Vocal Arts. Notoriously one of the world's best and most challenging training institutions for young professional opera singers. Many of the world's greatest opera stars come out of there. Performing Don Giovanni, a major role like that at such a major institution, was really cool. Coming out to Arizona to perform with Arizona Opera, it's like my first time working with like a pretty big regional company, getting to perform on 2,300 seat opera house, performing real principal roles with a full cast of professional singers. Very, very cool. Those are probably 2 of the biggest opera highlights. For the YouTube career, I would say relaunching the podcast and getting to talk with people like Janet Varney, who did the voice of Korra in Legend of Korra, or Mako, who writes a lot of the music for League of Legends, or Miracle of Sound, or getting to talk with someone like Eric Holloway, like one of the lowest basses in the world, Eric Whitaker, Glenn Miller, another basso profundo. I mean, the guest list on the podcast is crazy. If you look back, really amazing who I've gotten to chat with. So relaunching the podcast has been a big highlight. Putting out my album, Metamorphosis, big highlight. Very, very cool. Very proud of that. Again, not the most materially successful thing I've done, but something I'm extremely proud of. And lots of stuff with the Bass Gang. I mean, volume 3, shooting volume 3 in the Czech Republic and getting to meet Tommy and Bobby and Manov and Casper for the first time. That was one of the greatest experiences of my life, no question. So those are a few highlights. Finderup 1978 asks, what's a thing that made you stop and think, damn, I am truly an adult now? I do feel it more and more. I've heard a lot of adults say they still feel like kids, and I guess that's because none of us, you never know everything. You never have a total grasp on the world or your emotions or your career. Even if you're really, really dialed, I consider myself a very dialed, disciplined, organized person. But even so, problems arise every day, man. Every single day. And that's part of it. And that's part of being an adult, is the problems arise and you just figure it out. You just deal with it. Every time something comes up, you just deal with it. And you try not to complain about it. And you keep your head up and you just keep going, which is my motto for this year, is just keep going. All the things going in the right direction. I will say, having the house makes me feel like an adult far more often than before I had the house. Like, waking up in my primary bedroom, going and sitting down at the window and like journaling or answering emails and looking out at the neighborhood, then going downstairs to cook a meal, then popping out to the grocery store and coming back. Pretty much all the time I'm interacting with my house, I feel like an adult, and I still am pinching myself when I live here or I go outside and I turn around, I look back at it and I'm like, that's my house. Like, I own that house. I built this full studio room in my house. That is an amazing feeling. So, the house. Let's go with the house. The house makes me feel like an adult. Boom. Okay. I think we have time for maybe one or two more. Samuel A. Thomas. Is the bass gang going to get together in Egypt next? And are y'all getting together next year? We don't know, but there has been talk lately, very lately, of getting together in Egypt about a year from now. Late summer, early fall 2025, we are spitballing about trying to get everyone together in Egypt. Maybe with some extra collaborators. That is so speculative, purely metaphysical speculation, but there is talk, and I'm going to be researching things. The Bass Gang is making a decent amount of money these days with Patreon and streaming and YouTube, which is very cool. That's only going to increase, especially after Volume 4. We might have the funds, even without fundraising, to make it happen, which would be ideal. So there is talk of that. Great question. We really, me, Marwan, and Bobby were spitballing big time and getting too excited about something that's not set in stone. But there is, as of yesterday, actually, a lot of talk about that. We have 1 minute left. Okay, next question. Assy Bassy. AC Bassy 02. I'm not sure. Let's go with Assy Bassy. Do you play? Have you played? Do you want to play any instruments? I would love to get better at guitar. I hope to make that happen someday. And I would love to get better at piano. I don't really have a desire to get proficient at any other instruments. I think this is my instrument. This is what I'm most naturally gifted at and what I've worked by far the hardest to improve. It's what I do with the Bass Gang. It's what I do with the podcast. It's how I sing in big opera houses. So this right here is my instrument, right? But the guitar I'd like to get better at, and the piano I would like to get better at. And I will leave the rest of the instruments to the wonderful people out there who are good at them. All right, guys, that's it. I think we got through... I would like to think... Let's see. I think we got through about... Oh, God. Maybe a third of all the questions, which is pretty good. So a 3 to 4 hour session, maybe I could get through all of them. But hopefully there'll be more next time. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming. If you're still here, bless you, my child. Thank you for being such a supporter of me and the channel, and for caring about what I do outside of just commenting on music, because that's why a lot of you people are here. If you're still here, you really care what I'm up to as a person, which is so cool. Guys, thanks for coming. 200,000 subscribers, and I will see you at 250,000. Leave a comment below. When do you think that's going to happen? Place your bets. See you guys there. Bye-bye.